Hey guys, and welcome to the first video in the series that I hopefully will be making, which will revolve around the building of an inbuilt desk PC case. I'm sure you've seen several examples of them. I'll show you a few. Uh, but in any way, my old desk was kind of falling apart. I'm going to be moving houses, so I'll have some more room to play with. And I also wanted a new, better, well, flashier PC case. I was thinking of going for either the Thermaltake View 71 or maybe the Corsair 570X. In the end, I kind of thought if I will go for that, I will pick the View 71 from Thermaltake. It looks a lot better, in my opinion. But it is a freaking monster of a case. It's a full tower. It weighs upwards of 20 kilos, and that is without any kind of equipment in it, any parts, anything. So that would have to be quite a sturdy desk, and it would have to be quite a bigger desk as well to fit the case on top of the desk, as opposed to on the floor where I have mine now, which is not ideal. But yeah, even though I'll have a bit more room to play with, that would be quite a big desk, and I honestly did not see any desks that I liked, so it just hit me. Why not? It looks a lot better. It's unique. It's better in pretty much every aspect. You have a lot of room to play with, to place upgrades, water cooling, LEDs, you name it. Uh, anyway, this video will be going mostly about the planning of such a thing, because I've watched a lot of videos of people building them, walkthroughs, building logs, journals, you name it, and a common element seems to be that things don't really go according to plan and you end up having to improvise. And also, I cannot start yet because I still have to move, so I kind of have to keep busy with something. So, my advice, even though I haven't done it yet, so it's not really expert advice, but my advice is plan carefully what you will need, where you will put which components, basic things like the shape of the desk. So, for starters, I would advise you to if you feel like it, to get an app slash program called Sketchup. It's free. You can use it on a browser. You can download the actual program. It's quite simple to use if you ever used anything like I don't know, Photoshop, whatever. You can make a 3D model of your desk, and that will give you the possibility to you can build the base desk. I will show you. This is the SketchUp program. This is just an empty file. You can build a little model of the desk, so to speak. This is one of the first ones I tried just to get familiar with the program. It's nothing specific. This is the second version that I was playing with. But then, and here comes the planning, then I figured out that this would be too wide for what I want. I will have more room to play with, but not that much more room. This would be a good, like, almost 180, 2 meters across. That would be a bit too much. So this is the final version that I am playing with for my, yes, for my inbuilt computer desk. This would be the general idea. My first advice to you is to figure out the shape of the desk. As you saw, I started initially thinking of a sort of a shape like this that I have right now, but with an extra side here for a couple more fans and more space. That turned out not to be the best idea for me for space reasons. So I went with this shape. You can have just a plain square rectangular desk and lower it a bit. In my case, I opted to have it at the normal height and have the actual platform where the computer will be with the glass on top higher. The monitor here, perhaps, maybe wall mounted. I'll have to see about that. I have not gotten that far. And a little platform here for keyboard, mouse, this and that, etc., etc., etc. What I would say is you have to really plan everything that you will need. For starters, the basic things like the wood, there are plenty of ways that you can do that. You can have it custom made, the desk itself, at a carpenter or so. Sure, you could buy one ready, completely done, metal, all the holes done. There are several models out there. There's the cross desk for $1,700. There's the definitely versions for over 1,000. Take your pick. That's a bit higher end stuff. It's professionally made, of course. This is all homemade. It's your own project. In any case, you can get, for example, the wood. You can get it at any sort of home improvement store. They'll probably cut it to measure for you. Some might actually be able to help you with the personalized holes, like here for the fans, for example. I have a hole here for the power button for cables. I will have a couple of cutouts here for the graphics card, and perhaps one here for motherboard access, one in the back for the PSU, all that. They might be able to help you with those cuts. If not, you can always get the wood cut in the general shape that you want, the boards with the measurements that you want, and then maybe at a carpenter or something, they might be able to do the little holes for you to make it easier, because honestly, this is something that you can do yourself if you have the tools easily, but I don't feel like buying a hole saw and all the different kinds of bits for a one-time project. I have some tools, but not that kind of specialized tools. After that, you have to decide which kind of wood, you have to get it cut. Uh, you have to figure out how to put it all together. I personally do not have a lot of carpentry skills and experience, but I do know some people that can help me with that, at least with advice, um, perhaps some tools as well. After that, you have to pay attention to the little details on the wood. For example, where do you want the holes? How many holes? The size of the holes? The mounting holes, I have not bothered to put them here yet because that's something that I can do myself with a simple drill. That's not very complicated, just have to be precise with the measurements, of course. Um, I have intended to do a little edge here in the inside of the table so that I will have a tempered glass top. I will have the glass cut to measure, and I will have it lying here on top of the whole desk. It's sturdy enough to hold the monitor and whatever else you usually have on top of your desk. As long as you don't drop stuff on there, it will be fine. It's quite thick and sturdy glass. After that, it comes to the placement of each piece. Right now, I have this setup, as you see, with two intake fans here, two exhaust fans here, both 140 millimeters, 14 centimeters, basically the bigger variant of fan. Here, it is planned to be an AIO cooler for the CPU. I have not yet decided if I will be having it as intake or exhaust of air, because I intend to have the case with positive pressure so that hopefully it will stay a bit dust free and hair free. Hint, hint, dogs. Um, so I'll have to figure out how exactly that is going to pan out, and if I use it as intake, do I have too much intake? If I use it as exhaust, do I have to add another intake fan because I only have two up here and they'll be filtered, which decreases the effectiveness. So there's all these little details that you need to take into account, as I said. Otherwise, this here is planned to be the graphics card with a small hole for the HDMI cable towards the screen. This would be the motherboard, the I/O cooler. You will need a PCI riser cable for the graphics card. This will be the PSU, which I will be trying to keep somewhat central to minimize the amount of extra cabling I'll have to buy. Like, I already will have to buy some other cables that I will list going forwards, and it's quite an amount, and it all adds up. It's all small, cheap stuff, but when you have dozens of stuff that you have to buy, it all adds up to the cost. And the whole point of this is to make a homemade case to your taste, but also that's cheaper than buying a ready professional case. So that's also a factor. Um, Here would sit SSDs and HDDs. I don't. This is just. It's not really very accurate, as you can see. They're not really lined up. But this is just so you get an idea of where it will be, of the distances between each part and all that. This would be the exhaust, as I said. Uh, Here on the left side, I was planning for perhaps an optical drive, a CD drive, but I might just get an external and have it on top of the desk, or go forward with this. I have not decided yet completely. and also an I/O panel with audio jacks, mic jack, and a couple USB ports, because otherwise you're going to have to run wires from the motherboard in the case. That's more holes, more wires, and the whole point of such a build is to be clean and good looking and all that. I have here a small hole for the USB cables coming from the I/O with for the mouse, keyboard, and whatever else I want, phone charger perhaps. And this would be a small hole for a power button. Yes, you also need the custom power button. They're readily available, but yeah, you will need one. You will need also to take into consideration the lag support. I have some support here planned and here as well. And you will have to take in consideration that you cannot drill, all you can, but it's not the best option. You have to, the easier way is to have your components arranged in such a way that you don't have to drill into the legs to put, for example, motherboard standoffs, whatever else you're going to use to fix the hard drives, PSU, the drive base, and all that. Which takes me to my next point, something that is also very important and can be quite challenging so far for me, is figuring out how you're going to fixate everything in place. The motherboard is pretty straightforward. You can just do a little pilot hole and hammer a couple standoffs in the wood. It's fine. That's really straightforward. AIO cooler fans, you just drill the screws directly into the wood, or you can get a mounting plate if you want or something. Anyway, it's not the most challenging thing to do. Um, Graphics card is quite a challenge because it will you normal graphics cards they will only have the little screw on the side at the back plate here where you normally would screw it into the side of the into the back plate of the case, let's say. So there's not a lot of support, and I've seen a lot of people, for example, drill onto the board or in the place where there are no circuits to create another hole. Personally, I'm not very confident in doing that. I will try my best to avoid that. Um, the solution that I have in mind right now, and bear in mind that this is not final, I still am researching and seeing what the best options are. But my thought right now is to have a small support under it, wooden even. Wood is non-conductive. You can get any other sort of non-conductive materials, but hey, the wood desk is going to be wood. And you can put a small support here on this side so it does not sag under it. You can let it just rest there. You don't need to actually screw it there, as far as I know. I could be wrong. As I said, I'm still researching this part. Don't take my word for gospel. Have a small vertical wood piece here where I could screw that using that one screw hole, and then another little support on this side. Uh, as I said, wood is non-conductive. It's not going to short out your board or anything. Uh, just try to minimize contact, like a small piece here, small piece here, small piece there, just to avoid any potential problems and heat transference and all that stuff. Make it as small as you can. Anyway, it's a possible solution. I'm not sure yet that it is the best solution. Like I said, still gotta work on that. For the PSU and for the hard drives, I actually had a bit of a difficulty figuring out, hey, how am I going to do this? Do I salvage a drive cage from some old case? Do I try to get something 3D printed? Do I can I find an actual bracket where I can mount it to the desk sturdily? And then, I mean, it just hit me. There's a very easy solution, which is, as you can see, this. You can get these little metal corner thingies. It's what you would normally use on a hinge, not a hinge, but let's say on a shelf or on a table to strengthen the corners. This is a small 40 times 60 millimeter one, 4 centimeter by 6. Um, it's small enough that it's not going to be a huge bulking thing inside of your desk. You can just use this for. I will just use this for fixating the PSU in place with the bottom two screws. I'll just leave the rest loose because it's not like the table is going to be flopping around, jumping across the room or anything. It's going to be sitting in place. So it just needs to be somewhat fixed. Same for the hard drives and the SSDs. And then that won't be an issue at all. And it's a cheap and easy solution to do it. I've seen it done other ways, like using motherboard standoffs on the backside, on the underside, sorry, of the HDDs, and then screwing through the table, through the underside of the table, and screwing into the standoffs. It's possible. It's probably a little bit more elegant, but honestly, it makes, in my eyes, it makes it a bit more difficult. And in the end, when I end up spray painting the whole table, I can spray paint the metal corners in the same color, and they will not be very visible. And it will also give your HDDs and SSDs some elevation so they don't rest on the wood. Well, the standoff wood as well, but anyway, I think it's more complicated. I might still go back on that decision and go with the standoff idea. But like I said, I don't have a whole lot of experience in woodworking, so every hole that I can avoid is one hole in my eyes. It's one hole less where something could go wrong, and then I have a hole because if I screw up a hole here or here, if the board chips or the whole piece comes off, or if I break it, it's not just a little hole there; it's the whole bottom plate, and then you have to do it all over again with all the holes and all the stand-ups and everything. And if it's already fixed to the table, well, you're pretty much screwed. So yeah, I just want to minimize issues, and yeah, I also don't feel like having a whole lot of screws popping out from the underside of the desk either. So yeah, that's kind of maybe an easy way out. But yeah, I think it might be the easiest option to avoid any future problems. What's left would be the I/O here and possible optic drive. Not sure yet. Um, I have actually found bay cage, not necessarily not a cage so to speak, but something that I can have here that will that has a surface that screws into the desk and then screws into the base. It's specially for this sort of drive bay, so it is the right measurements. I don't have to worry about being millimeters off, this, that. It's just screw it there, done. Perfect for what I want. Now, this brings me to the last point of this video, which is planning for cables. Now, for this, you have to have a general idea of the layout of the desk, where which piece is going to go, and the distance between each piece. That is where this program comes handy, because I cannot actually do anything physically yet. I'm still waiting to move uh, to my new house, so I do not know yet exactly how wide the desk will be, but I have a general idea. Um, I cannot actually have the wood plates here, so I can place the parts there and grab a measuring tape and see how much length of cable I'll need for this part and that part. But this program has a little measuring tape, which you can use to measure, for example, oh, how much cable I'm gonna need from the PSU to the, let's say, motherboard. And you can measure, for example, here if you want to, what I will do with the cables is I will have a small cover over the cables, so they will have to be in straight lines. Well, to be neater. You don't want cables going anywhere, everywhere on a case like this. You want it to look neat. You want it to look clean. So that is seemed to me the best option. Anyway, I would measure a straight line, for example, from the PSU, and here at the bottom right corner of the program, or also hovering there near your mouse cursor, you have the distance for right now 15.8 centimeters, and then towards, let's say, the middle of the motherboard, 33 centimeters roughly, give and take. So you add both of those up, you know how much cable you need to reach your power supply for the motherboard. You can look, seriously advise you to use a modular PSU for this, because I cannot imagine doing this with an actual non-modular, you would have to hide the cable somewhere in a corner or whatever. And like this, if for example you need, let's say that your cable for the CPU is only 50 centimeters, and let's say that you need 60, you can easily at any case mod website or vendor, you can buy a longer cable or cable extensions, and you can work cable per cable instead of having to deal with a whole mess of tangled cables from a non-modular. But in any case, yes, you can measure in this program the distance of cables that you will need for this, for that, for whatever. So what you need or don't need will depend on your own project. In my case, well, you will definitely need, no matter the circumstances, if you want to have your motherboard separate from your motherboard separate from your graphic card, you will always need a PCIe riser cable, probably a 30 centimeter one, unless you have it right next to each other. That is yeah, non-negotiable. You'll also need almost for sure an extension for if you use a bay like I do here with the I/O. You will need extenders for the HD audio, for the USB ports towards the motherboard. You will need a SATA, probably longer SATA cables than you now have, because in my case right now this is going to be a good 70 centimeters, something like that. You will also need the SATA cables for the hard drives and SSDs. In my design, they might actually fit the default ones. They might be long enough. You are going to need 4-pin extensions, most likely, for the fans here and here. These are close enough. You'll need a power button, and you'll need a 2-pin connector from the power button to the motherboard. uh, in my experience, from what I've seen so far, the power buttons actually come without the connectors there, and they have to be soldered to the power button needs to be soldered to the 2-pin. And I don't have a lot of experience or equipment for soldering either. And quite honestly, I might try to learn how to if I delve any further into this whole case modding thing. But for now, I just want to dip my toes in this, get this desk done the simpler way possible, and I will learn that along the way as I have more time and a less overwhelming project, because there is a lot to think about this, a whole lot, a lot of problems, a lot of things that need solutions. You find a solution, and that solution brings with it two more different issues, so it's kind of overwhelming. So what I can simplify, I am simplifying, as is the case with the little hooks for corners to hold the PSU on hard drives. So I am thinking that I might, when I order those parts, and I will order a lot of the cabling from the same store, I will message them and I'll ask if they can perhaps pre-solder them for me, so that I don't have to deal with that at the very least. And that's one more problem out the window. Now, one of the last parts that I will mention in this video today is a little, some sort of filter or protection to cover the holes that you drill, because you don't want dust. You want to minimize dust as much as possible. That's why going for a positive pressure build is important. That way you'll have more air going in the case, well, slash desk, than going out. And what that means is that whatever little hole that there is in your case, like the hole for the, let's say that there's a couple millimeters off here and there's a small gap, or the holes for the cables that you will have on that side there, all of that, whatever little hole there is in your case, there will be air coming out of there instead of air being sucked in, because the fans already suck in more air than the exhaust can take off, so there will be air escaping through here outwards. That means that whatever dust there will be outward, will be blown off a little bit, and there won't be new dust coming in, at least not much, because you'll have a filter on the grill here on the intakes, and here as well if these are intakes, which is also something I forgot to mention in the video, but you will need one. And well, you don't need one, but you definitely want one. You don't want this to be completely dusty and messy. And now for the last part of what you might need in this video, or what I will need at the very least, because what's the point of making a build like this if you're not going to make it flashy? Uh, you will need LED strips. I will go for LED strips here along the edges under this lip, so the glass will sit on the top and it will have LED along the edge to light my case. I will try to make it RGB to make it a bit more customizable. You can have a whole light showing there. It's freaking crazy. It might be. I'm kind of half expecting that it will be a bit too much, and I might have it turned off sometime. But I want the option to be able to do it. I want to make it as amazing as I can, obviously, because otherwise, what's the point? Which leads me to a point I had forgotten: planning the components, fans, uh, the LED strips, motherboard, graphics card. Some PSUs have also RGB lighting, which I am not going for. I just bought a new PSU recently. I'm not going to replace it just for that, at least not yet. Some hard drives SSDs might have it. I actually have not looked into it yet, but it's also not my priority. Um, where I was going with this is that a lot of that stuff, if you want to synchronize it so that the lights change with each other and simultaneously, or a pattern, or you name it, it's possible. It looks amazing, but you have to plan very carefully because each manufacturer has a different standard and sometimes even different orders connectors. Um, there's RGB fusion, there's mystical lighting, there's Asus Aura. So you kind of have to figure out, and usually they are not compatible with each other, or if they are, they need some sort of converter, adapter, controllers, you name it. So you have to kind of figure out which of those standards you are going to go for and pick your stuff accordingly. Right now, my plan is, and this is also not set in stone yet, is to go with the Thermaltake ring fans. They look pretty damn amazing, better than any others I've seen, if you ask me. A lot of options. The lighting's amazing, the RGB is very impressive, but it is not syncable with a lot of things on itself. Thing is, there is a small controller that you can plug up to 9 fans, which is more than enough for my build, and that controller makes it compatible with a number of other standards. It makes it compatible with Aura from Asus. It makes it compatible with EVGA and MSI as well, I believe. So that gives you a bit of wiggle room on what motherboard you'll be having, what graphics card you'll be having, and so that the lighting on those will also be compatible with all the rest, and it can be synced. I don't have an Asus motherboard or graphics card yet, but in the future, when I do upgrade, I will definitely keep that in mind. Fingers crossed for GTX 1180 and i7 900, 9700K, which do not have release days yet, but I'm keeping my eyes on them. But in any case, yes, that is another point that you need to keep in mind. And my advice is, before you even touch a tool or a plank of wood, or before you even order anything, figure everything out. Where you're going to put the legs on the table, what standards, what tools, how you're going to do it, what are you going to use to fix stuff, cables, how many cables, what length, everything. Figure everything out so you don't have any surprises, so you can plan, so you can know how much you're going to spend on this. Look for around you places where they cut tempered glass in the shape that you need. Wood, cutting the wood. If you have someone that can help you or not with the right tools, like a hole saw. If the home improvement store that you are most familiar with does it for you or not. All that. Those are the points. And yeah, that's about it for this video. I will do my best to keep a build log for this. I don't have a GoPro or any sort of wearable camera that I can use while I'm building it. I don't feel like having a hand on the phone behind me taping it either, or having to bother someone to tape it all for me. Um, So I will just do sort of a building log. I will take pictures and videos of it as I go, but not while I'm working. I'll just do a little bit, take a video of it, explain what I'm doing. I will fix another piece. I'll put the standoffs in there. I'll take a video and show you what it's looking like. But yeah, I cannot do a full video log of me working. I sorry about that. And also, do not expect the next few parts to be anytime soon. I still have to move houses. I still that's gonna take at the very least probably another month and a half. Still have to sort stuff out in the house, put stuff in place, little touch whatever touch ups I have to do, and this is so yeah, this is kind of on the back burner for now, but am definitely very interested in doing this project. If not, I will just grab the View 71. I will need a good desk for that, but that's I'm probably gonna get murdered for having a 20 kilo enormous full tower monster on my desk. But yeah, so yeah, this seems to be a better option than that. But that's definitely also an option. But yeah, that's just me. I get a project in my head. I just cannot stop until I get it done with. So I will be very disappointed if I cannot do this in the near future. If not now, it's definitely something I want to do. But in any case, don't expect the next part of this series to be soon. But it's definitely in the plans. So yeah, sorry for the long video. Sorry for the hesitation when talking, because I'm kind of thinking at the same time as I'm looking at the video and thinking, what else do I need to mention? I didn't actually make a plan, which should have been smart. Um, but yeah, anything anyway. In any case, I'll see you guys next time, and oh, take care.